While the idea of Canada merging with the United States sounds like the stuff of alternate history novels, the truth is that such a scenario could bring about profound changes, not just in North America, but in the global order. In this thought experiment, let's explore what might unfold if Canada were to join the United States and become the 51st state. The immediate political and economic shift. First and foremost, the political landscape of North America would undergo an unprecedented transformation. Canada's political structure, which currently operates as a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary democracy, would be completely dissolved in favor of the American system. The Canadian Parliament would be replaced by a new bicameral system, with members of the Canadian provinces being integrated into the U.S. Senate and House of Representatives. A giant leap in the North American economy. Canada's integration into the U.S. would significantly boost the American economy, particularly by increasing the size of the labor force, adding vast natural resources, and expanding consumer markets. Canada is home to some of the largest deposits of natural resources in the world, including oil, gas, minerals, and fresh water. The integration of these resources into the U.S. would undoubtedly lower production costs and increase economic output, positioning the combined nation as an even more formidable global economic player. Canadian industries, particularly in energy, forestry, and mining, would likely benefit from American capital, technology, and expertise. However, this shift could also exacerbate the US's already massive inequality, particularly as the transition could lead to job displacements in both Canadian and American sectors. At the same time, Canadians would gain access to the benefits of the US economy, larger job markets, more investment opportunities, and greater access to a diverse range of industries. The Canadian dollar would likely be replaced by the US dollar, further integrating the two countries' economies. A new political union. What about the Canadian identity? Canada's national identity would face a massive upheaval. Canadians have long prided themselves on their distinct cultural identity, which includes everything from their healthcare system to their bilingual nature, French and English, to their unique role on the global stage as a peacekeeping nation. But joining the US would blur these lines in ways that would be impossible to reverse. Would Canada's bilingualism persist, or would English become the sole official language? Would Canadians be forced to adopt more Americanized policies and cultural values? It's likely that many Canadian institutions, including their healthcare system, would be under pressure to align with US models, especially given the challenges the US faces with its current healthcare infrastructure. While some Canadians might embrace the change for the economic and military security it brings, many others would resist the loss of their unique cultural and political heritage. Furthermore, the Canadian political parties would have to adapt to the American system, which could spark a major shift in the nation's political dynamics. Would the conservative political strongholds of Canada, such as Alberta, align more closely with the US GOP, while provinces like Quebec, which has a strong independence movement, might rebel against the idea of a full political union? The question of political identity and autonomy could become a major issue, even leading to regional tensions. A military superpower in the making. Militarily, Canada joining the US would represent a huge leap forward for the combined nation. With Canada's vast landmass and strategic location bordering the Arctic, the US would gain the ability to extend its reach into the North Atlantic and Arctic regions that are increasingly important for global military and resource strategies. The US military would immediately gain control of Canada's advanced air force, navy, and ground forces, while also benefiting from the Canadian Forces' expertise in peacekeeping and multinational military coordination. The joint forces could become the most formidable military entity in the world. On the flip side, the addition of Canada would significantly bolster the security of the US and its allies in NATO. Canada's long-standing role as a peacekeeper could play a more prominent role in US military strategy, especially in diplomacy and conflict resolution. However, such a merger could also raise global concerns. Countries that are wary of US power could view the expanded military as a threat. A greater United States could lead to the emergence of new geopolitical rivalries, especially with Russia, China, and other emerging powers in Africa and Asia. Environmental impact and resource management. Canada is home to some of the world's most pristine natural environments, from its boreal forests to its Arctic tundra. With the US gaining control over these vast wilderness areas, questions would arise over how to balance economic development with environmental preservation. The US has long been criticized for its environmental policies, and Canadians might resist any moves to accelerate the exploitation of natural resources in their territories, especially in the Arctic, which has significant untapped reserves of oil and gas. Furthermore, Canada's environmental policies are often considered more progressive than those in the US. Would environmental laws in Canada be rolled back to align with the more laissez-faire policies of the American government? Or would the US adopt Canada's greener policies, especially in areas like carbon pricing and wildlife conservation? This could be a major point of contention and would be a defining factor in shaping the future of the environment in North America. Social and cultural integration, a new national identity. While there are some who might support the idea of Canadian-American unification, the cultural and social challenges would be immense. Canada has a more progressive track record on issues like immigration, multiculturalism, and LGBTQ+ rights. Integrating into the US system could present serious challenges, particularly for Canadians who value their country's more inclusive approach. Issues like healthcare would also be hotly debated. Canadians are accustomed to universal health care, which is vastly different from the privatized system of the US. Would Canadians be forced to accept the American system, which many argue is inefficient and excludes millions? The healthcare debate would likely be one of the biggest flashpoints in the early years of the new union, with massive protests from Canadians who view their healthcare system as a fundamental part of their identity. Quebec's potential rebellion. One of the most complicated aspects of this merger would be Quebec. Quebec has long held aspirations of independence, and the idea of being absorbed into a predominantly English-speaking, US-dominated system could provoke a fierce backlash from Quebecers. The region's French-speaking population has long fought for greater autonomy, and it's plausible that a portion of the Quebec population would seek to leave the new union entirely, either pushing for full independence or demanding a separate status as an autonomous region within the US. The question of whether Quebec would accept American rule, or whether it would engage in another round of referendums on independence, could very well be the flashpoint that threatens the stability of the new union. The global ramifications. On a global scale, a combined US-Canada superpower would shift the balance of power. The US has always been a global hegemon, but with Canada's vast resources and strategic positioning, the US would become even more dominant, especially in the Arctic and Pacific regions. The economic and military might of this new superstate would challenge the influence of China, Russia, and the European Union. The US could also become the undisputed leader in global environmental policy if Canada's progressive environmental standards were integrated into US policy. The combined nation could theoretically lead the world in fighting climate change, using its position as the largest economy and military power to push for global environmental reforms. However, such power would not come without its critics. Smaller nations, especially in the global south, could see this union as a form of imperial expansion, leading to a new era of geopolitical tensions. Conclusion: the dawn of a new era or the end of Canada's identity? If Canada were to join the United States, it would fundamentally alter not just North America, but the entire world order. The combined nation would likely become an economic, military, and political titan. But the costs, both in terms of cultural identity and political autonomy, would be enormous. For many Canadians, the merger would represent the end of a unique national identity built over centuries, while for Americans, it would usher in a new era of prosperity and power. Would it be a smooth transition or a conflict-ridden nightmare? The truth is, we may never know, because this is one scenario that, thankfully, remains in the realm of imagination.